I'm Eve, she, her, and I thank you so much for allowing me to be here. This is so important to me. And I want to start with what is the Twilight People prayer that was composed by Rabbi Reuben Zellman at transtorah.org, or at least that's where it can be found. Twilight people, as the sun sinks and the colors of the day turn, we offer a blessing for the twilight. For twilight is neither day nor night, but in between. We are all twilight people. We can never be fully labeled or defined. We are many identities and loves, many genders and none. We are in between roles at the intersection of histories or between place and place. We are crisscrossed paths of memory and destination. Streaks of light swirled together. We are neither day nor night. We are both, neither, and all. May this sacred in-between of this evening suspend our certainties, soften our judgments, and widen our vision. May this in-between light illuminate our way to the God who transcends all categories and definitions. May the in-between people who have come to pray be lifted up into this twilight. We cannot always define. We can always say a blessing. Blessed are you, God of all, who brings on the twilight. I have to say, it is strange that the person who stands before you, a Reformed Jewish boy, now girl from Milwaukee, talking to this church. The one, I use the word weird not as weird, but as weird as this is my faith, this is my truth, this is my understanding of myself, this is what I have been going for all along and did not know it. I spent so much time of so many decades of my life hiding from myself. I thought I was also hiding from God. The strange thing here is that I am intimately connected with the faith community now, and intimately connected with this church, which has marked so many things for me. I remember through Sophie, your friend, minister, Sophie, Reverend Sophie, like I tease her because she always forgets to say she's Reverend Sophie, that this was the church that supported Blake on his journey. Now, the curious thing is I knew Blake, or I'd seen Blake. I was in a fitness class, CrossFit, that's what they called it. CrossFit class with Blake, when Blake was trying to make sure that Blake could pass the physical to re-up or whatever it is that the Navy demanded. And this was before I was out, though I did have silver or copper fingernail polish on all the time. Small change kind of colors, okay? And other people in the CrossFit class said, what's with that person? I'm not going to use Blake's prior name, okay? And I knew exactly what that person was about, but I wasn't going to say anything. And I didn't say anything to Blake, and Blake didn't say nice nails. Because it was given that we would not talk to each other. It was a given that we were so isolated we could not talk to ourselves. And yet I find out that Blake came to this church and felt support from this church. And when I had this crazy idea that I needed to bring the Transgender Day of Remembrance to Bainbridge Island, to this part of Kitsap County, Bainbridge Island and North Kitsap, I was told by the Kitsap Pride that, yeah, they would support this as long as it wasn't at a church. So that's why we do it at the museum. Too many people in my community don't want to be anywhere near a church. But I wanted the church to be involved. I knew the faith leaders would want to be there. This was, important. And so I decided, I would go to the Interfaith Council and see if they would support us. Well, at least let them know that the event was happening. And so I went to an Interfaith Council meeting, and it was here. This is where I came to. And they were wonderful. I had this weird thought while I was sitting there and saying, it's just not right for me just to come when I want something. Like I'm checking a box. And so I've been attending Interfaith Council meetings ever since, and that's like 5-6 years ago now. And now the Interfaith Council is a sponsor, a supporter and sponsor of our Trans Day of Remembrance event that we have at BEMA at 4 o'clock today. And so when I wanted to do an interfaith pride service one June, back before the pandemic, 2 years before the pandemic, it was here that we came. Reverend Aaron helped with Rabbi Paul, at that time, the rabbi of Kol Shalom. We came here. And then you had my friend, Reverend Simon as your minister. Oh, by the way, Reverend Aaron is also my friend. I have a lot of ministerial friends now. But you had Simon here for a long time, even after Simon moved to someplace in New England. And now I'm here again. And the death of Mars is something that's incredibly personal here. I'm not used to looking out and saying, we know these people know one of the names, know the person. I'm used to lecturing about time, gender, all sorts of things, the cruelties of it, how this always happens and everything else. And, the circumstances that, Pastor Amara covered so well there. I want you to know how special you are. I want you to know that if there is anywhere a Twilight church where the people of Twilight are welcome, it is here, right here. And it moves me greatly. And I think it is something that, just like this thing I just learned, this gesture that I had never seen, done in a church or temple before. I was like, what is that, Doug? Where'd that come from? And you picked up, on that apparently during, the pandemic. During the pandemic, I couldn't do a regular event at BEMA for the Transgender Day of Remembrance. And so we started the Faith Project, which is having churches read just 10 names. That is what we did, and that's what we continue to do. That's what we are doing now. And it is incredibly important to me that it continue. So I'm going to finally get to my closing remarks. But I want to say that the hardest person to come out to for me was myself. As much as we put the blame on everywhere else, it is me, myself. So 25 years ago, there was no list at all. The idea then was just to make ourselves visible. 6 years ago, the list we used did not include suicides. as the details were always incomplete, and so the suicides remained invisible. This year, we are bringing the suicides in as we now know these people, often youth and kids, were open about being trans. We can only shine a light on murders around the world, but we feel we can actually do much in our lives and communities to help these kids. We are the invisible become visible. And we stand in today for all those, trans or not, who are in need of welcome from the world, from their communities, from their friends and family, and from themselves. Thank you.
I invite those who are reading names to come stand along.
Fern Feather, age 29, 12 April 2022,
Jen,
Morristown, Vermont, stabbed.
I can't hear you.
Fern's body was found by the side of the road on the morning of Tuesday, the 12th of April. The man charged in her death claimed self-defense, but police say there is no physical evidence to support this allegation. Fern was part of the sweet, weird, fun-loving Salt Cafe family, serving the Vermontist farm-to-table food to politicians, farmers, New York Times journalists, culinary school kids, lawyers, and visitors from Australia.
Jen, can you say that name one more time for those of us in the sanctuary? That name was Fern Ferndale. Fern Ferndale.
The second name is Melissa Nunez, age 42, from Modoseli, Honduras, shot. Melissa, a trans activist, returned to Honduras last December after being denied asylum in the United States. She was murdered by people wearing hoods.
The third name is Dasky Azad, age 23, died January 28th, 2022. She was shot. Dasky was shot in the head and chest by her estranged brother, who flew back to from Europe to Iraq to murder her. Her hands were tied together and her body was left in a shallow ditch. She was a makeup artist in Iraq's Kurdistan region.
I name J.L. Da Silva, age 18, and C. de Azevedo Soares, age 31, on the 12th of February, 2022, in Sao Bento do Una, in Pernambuco, Brazil, shot. They were shot by firearms together with a third person, perhaps also trans. Their preferred names are not known, so they are here only by their initials.
The name, Zen Black, age 28. On the 3rd of January of 2022, in the city of Downpatrick, County Down in Northern Ireland, was stabbed. Zen died at the scene after being stabbed in the street in the broad daylight. The perpetrator was restrained by witnesses and arrested shortly after the attack. Zen was a non-binary tattoo artist who was originally from Bangor in Northern Ireland. They had only moved to Downpatrick late in the previous year. Police said they were aware that video footage of the brutal incident had been shared on social media and appealed to the public not to share it or view the footage.
Sixth name is Taylor. Died on the 9th of July, 2022. In Watton, Under Edge, Gloucestershire, in England, by suicide. Taylor died by suicide in a women's prison on Saturday, 9th of July, the day of London's Trans Pride. He was serving an indeterminate prison sentence and had already been in prison for 14 years of what was originally a 4-year sentence for burglary. In the judge's summing up of his case, whereby he was given an IPP sentence, he recognized it was Taylor's gender issues that led to his imprisonment.
Malti C, age 25, from Munster, North Rhine-Westphalia in Germany, beaten. Malti died several days after being beaten when he came to the aid of 2 women who were being harassed by a man at the Munster Christopher Street Day Pride Festival.
The next victim's name is known only to God. This person was aged somewhere between 25 and 40 and died on August 14th, 2022 in Reynosa, Tamaulipas, Mexico. The authorities reported that last Sunday they found the body of a trans woman between the ages of 25 and 40 years old floating in a canal. She had been dead for about 2 days. Her hands and feet were tied, and she had suffered blows to the head. They're currently investigating if she was killed by the same person who murdered another trans woman in the area the same week.
Rodrigo Ventosia, August 11th, 2022, Indonesia. Denpasar, Bali, died in custody. Rodrigo, a Harvard graduate student, died in Indonesian custody after being detained when he and his spouse arrived for their honeymoon in Bali.
Mars Kaufman, age 16, October 12th, Los Angeles, California. Mars died by suicide. Mars was an active, creative, transgender boy. He loved roller coasters, shark movies, swinging, ice cream, and all animals, especially dogs and bunnies. He had a huge, beautiful heart and was always looking out for those who seemed different or needed a friend. He struggled with eating disorders, self-harm, and autism. He took his own life at from a program he was really hoping could help him at a ranch up in the mountains. He left a note saying, "I'm out of here. Peace out." Let's join together in this prayer. God of mercy, we know that the loss of those murdered and lost to suicide is not just loss of life, but that their laughs, thoughts, relationships, ideas are also no longer with us. They had so much beauty and love to contribute to the world and their community, and we suffer from no longer having those contributions. Even their presence and life itself were contributions to this world and their community. We grieve with our transgender and non-binary siblings. We renew our commitment to respond to the challenge until everyone is safe in their families, their churches, and their communities.